How many terror attacks have France had last year?
I don't know. Was it like 2 or 3? How many?
It was including foiled and arrested. There are 120 incidents of separate, planned or carried out Islamic terrorist attacks in France last year. How many were in Poland?
I don't know. Who the fuck why would you attack Poland? There's nothing in Poland. Alright, my dude, what's up?
Is the sound levels alright?
Yeah, it sounds beautiful.
Lovely. Hello. Do you remember we've talked before?
Do what?
Do you remember that we've talked before?
I'm scrolling up and I see that we have indeed talked before, yeah.
Yeah, do you remember that one?
I don't remember what it was about.
I think in the end we agreed to disagree, but I think majoritatively you were right. You were saying about statistical analysis and Lauren Southern being retarded, and in the end I argued, but she's since proven that you were perfectly correct.
All right. Okay, buddy. So you have a huge raging hate boner for the wonderful religion of peace known as Islam.
Religion of peace, yeah, definitely. Can I maybe we can just stipulate some stuff at the beginning.
Yeah, go ahead. The argument, sure.
Yeah, cool. I in no way hate Muslims or anyone who follows Islam. I just have a big problem with the way Islam is portrayed.
Okay.
And the way that if you follow the Quran, especially if you do it chronologically, in the way that Muhammad says you should, then it goes from a peace-loving spreader of love and acceptance to a hate-filled warmonger who says that all his followers should do the same thing if they believe themselves to be true Muslims.
Gotcha.
So obviously it's down to interpretation in the modern world. Mm-hmm. It's how you interpret how you think you should live, how you should live modern day and stuff. However, it's all too easy for Muslims to do what they want to do and state it's my religion and white guilt to accept it.
Oh, now we're on white guilt now? Oh shit. Okay, let's talk about religion. Do you really think that the text is really like insanely important?
It depends what religion.
Why do you say that?
Well, because religions are vastly different from each other. If you look at the Bible, you look at Old Testament, the text of the Bible advocates for violence and stuff and is the word of God apparently, but the New Testament advocates for peace and is again the word of God. So it depends. In Christianity you're following solely the Old Testament, New Testament.
Sure.
Blah,
do you
blah,
think
blah.
that most Christians follow the New Testament though, to the letter?
Yes. Not to the letter, no.
Do you think that most Christians follow the general sentiment of the New Testament?
Yes.
Can you tell me what parts of the New Testament Jesus advocates for supply-side free market capitalism, and where he runs around and people are asking him to heal him, and he talks about how healthcare is not a right, and that if he were to heal people, he would be putting the hospitals out of business?
Can you tell me where in the Bible it says that you should base your political beliefs around the Bible, or that your personal actions around it? But I can tell you where in the Quran it says your political beliefs should be exactly the same as your personal beliefs.
Okay, well, I mean, if you're saying that you shouldn't base your political beliefs around it, I mean, a lot of Christians do when it comes to things like homosexuality and whatnot. Also, I think it's kind of implied that you should probably base your personal actions around what's in the Bible. I mean, the Ten Commandments are literally a personal guide to how to live your personal life.
Well, it depends if you believe New Testament over Old Testament. The Mosaic laws ended the Ten Commandments, so New Testament doesn't...
No.
What? Yes.
Ended the Ten Commandments? No.
No, what Jesus said was, to enter the kingdom of God, you need to accept me as God's messenger and live a life as I say.
Okay, but it didn't end the Ten Commandments.
No, it overrode the need to stick to the Ten Commandments to enter the kingdom of God.
I'm not sure.
Remember, I'm arguing from a Church of England background, not a Catholic background. Again, this is where I think your arguments against Islam come from an American system, whereas mine comes from a British system. That's a lot different.
Didn't you guys literally make the Church of England because your king wanted to fuck some other bitch and didn't want to get an annulment from one of his marriages?
Originally, that's where it came from. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Originally, but obviously things evolve. Protestantism, Martin Luther, things like that, all had an effect on how the Church of England upholds itself. Don't get me wrong, I'm not religious in any way. I'm agnostic. I don't conform to a set religion. I believe there might be something out there, but
gotcha. I guess what's bothering me is you're making it seem like Christians, as this enlightened society, have all this deference in terms of like, well, I don't have to follow specifically this or this or this because I'm a Christian. But then when you point to Islam, Muslims must follow all of the Quran to the letter of the law with no wiggle room whatsoever.
Well, yeah. If you, I don't know if you've read the Quran. The Quran is literally the word of God given to Muhammad that Muhammad then speaks to, and the hadiths are things that Muhammad have said, but the Quran is meant to be literally the word of God, whereas the Bible's not. I don't
know how much of this is Catholic versus other religions, but I don't really like that interpretation because, like, the Gospels and the books of the Bible are all divinely inspired as well. It's literally God talking to writers who are then writing. I don't know if there's a huge distinction between some big dude talking to Muhammad and then him writing shit down versus God talking to a collection of authors and them writing shit down. I don't know if that's like a big distinction that should be made.
I can say that previous popes have stated that although the Bible it's the word of God given to the individual that's then interpreted and written down by the individual, whereas the Quran is literally meant to be the word of Allah written down.
I've never heard this, that the Bible is interpreted by the individuals that wrote it. I thought that it was divinely inspired.
Yeah, inspired. Inspiration is not a mirror.
I don't think that's how that works. I don't think that's how the term is understood.
Well, if you inspire someone to do something, it means you've encouraged them, and if you look at the
divine inspiration doesn't mean that God gave somebody like a really good mood one day to go and write a book. Divine inspiration.
No, it means that they gave them information, and they chose to write that information down in the word of.
Do you think God gave them like a Cliff Notes version and relied on the people to actually write down the? I don't think Christians believe this.
Yeah.
I don't think Christians believe this. I think that when you're reading the Bible, you're
using the word Christian. Do you know how many sects there are of Christianity?
Okay, I don't think that any of them. I don't think that Lutherans, Protestants, Catholics, or Baptists believe this. Maybe Church of England.
I think you're mistaken. Catholics certainly believe that it's the divine word of God. However, a vast majority of New Testament religions don't believe that it's a direct translation from God.
I've never heard of this before in my entire life, but okay. So you're telling me that,
getting off, it's a bit of a semantic game, I guess.
Well, it's not a semantic game, because this is like the games that people like to play. Is that when they talk about Christianity, we run this no true Scotsman argument into the fucking ground, where it's like, well, hold on, those people aren't real Christians, and Christians actually have a lot of deference in the way they interpret their holy text, and there's a lot of wiggle room, and Christians are free to do this. But then when you want to talk about Islam, you're like, well, Islam, every single Muslim follows the Quran absolutely.
Okay, there's no. I can tell you where that comes from, though. The Pope is the head of the Catholic Church. The Pope says, this is what we follow, this is what was meant, we do this. Whereas in Quran, there is no one head. There are thousands of imams, there are thousands of holy people that have different beliefs, and we believe, what interpretation of what text is then gone out to different countries, different sects of Islam, things like that.
Even in the Catholic Church, there's disagreement sometimes, even from things handed down to the Pope himself. Like even in the same city, you can have two different Catholic churches that are very different in terms of strictness and how they teach things. Like some that don't even have like evening services and do the morning services every day and shit, or some that are very strict about what they do in the church and have their stances on homosexuality. Like that can come down to your individual pastors, or I'm sorry, not pastors, preachers.
Their stance might, but how they would run their church has to comply with what the Pope says, otherwise they're decanonized.
So, to some extent, but there's still quite a bit of wiggle room, like even within a single sect of Christianity. Like it's not
I agree. Modern time, there is obviously certain wiggle room, but I don't think Islam works the same way when you talk about Sunni and Shiite Islam.
If you believe this, can you explain to me why there are millions of Muslims that live in the United States that aren't terrorists? If all of them are supposed to be literally following the word of Muhammad and fighting holy wars all over the world?
Yeah, because they're not surrounded by people that are enforcing this belief.
Okay, so...
It's like our argument yesterday about geography. It seems the further you are away from countries that practice it as a political stance versus a personal belief, the less likely you are to act out those beliefs.
Okay, so you don't think that there are any majority Muslim neighborhoods or anything in the entire United States? Or majority, like, how many Muslims do you need to make a terrorist? Is it like Voltron, like when you get like a certain...
I don't know why we're talking about terrorism, but...
Well, because it seemed like the central claim. You can tell me if I'm misstating it, but it seemed like your central claim on Twitter was that if we let Muslims into the countries, then they're going to like overrun and blow everything up. That seemed kind of like
okay. No, maybe I come across this wrong then. My point on Twitter was that encouraging socioeconomic migrants into Britain that are from predominantly Islamic countries will alter the culture and acceptability of that culture in our country to the point where they then start taking political jobs, things like mayors and stuff, as they have started to, and will change the political landscape of this country because we don't have a constitution like the US. They would change the political landscape more and more dramatically towards an Islamic focused one.
And you don't think it's possible that these people coming to your country might integrate more into your culture and be less radical or whatever than, I guess, Saudi Arabia or whatever you think they would try to emulate?
Of course. I think the majority do. However, it only takes a minority after a certain number to influence things.
Well, if a majority coming over doesn't believe these things and the minority continue to be a minority, it seems like they would never gain a political voice to change these things, no?
No, because that's not how politics works, is it? We all know that the majority don't vote the same, whereas if you've got a minority that all believe one ideology, then they do all vote the same. It's like Iran in the 70s.
So of all of your population that exists in the country, your contention is that a number of Muslims will come in, a minority of whom are radical, but they, because they can stick together, will vote for Sharia law that the rest of the country just isn't going to be able to come out against because they're a minority that sticks together?
Not just the minority itself, but if you look at when the minority that are radicalized, leads mosques, and the number of mosques exploding that have radicalized imams and that preach to the local, maybe peaceful Muslims, then yeah, I do think that, yeah.
Do you have any evidence of this happening right now, where in the United Kingdom there are like people trying to take over your political system in horrible ways to represent like radical Islam?
Yeah, the first vote. Well, you have it in your country, in fact.
Well, what was that first? It in my country.
Who was that? The first Muslim senator to come to power just blocked. What was it for? Was it blocked that people couldn't sue Saudi Arabia for thingy? I'll have to look it up, because saying that's just retarded.
Wasn't this something that was more like everybody voted in favor of this because we probably shouldn't be suing our allies? This was about like suing the Saudi Arabia for 9/11 hijacking, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this didn't have anything to do with one Muslim stopping it. This was something that was stopped by a lot of people, right?
No, not what I'm referring to. I might have
Apparently, Obama was the one who vetoed the bill to allow September 11th victims to sue Saudi Arabia.
It might not be that I'm talking about then. Sorry, I'm terrible, obviously. I'm not going to say the meme, I'm not prepared, or whatever, because you're as prepared as I am.
No, well, I mean, I'm familiar with what you're talking about, but I've never heard of... like one Muslim came. I feel like this story would be screamed from the headlines if there was one Muslim that came and stopped us from being able to, but I don't think our political system works that way. Oh, but you could say Obama is a Muslim, maybe, if you believe that.
No, definitely not. See, I can't even get the story. What was it?
I don't know, I'm familiar with what you're talking about. Like there was a bill that was up that was supposed to allow people to sue Saudi Arabia for 9/11, but I don't remember anything having... Yeah,
but what I read was... I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. Is that it was the first Muslim either senator, representative, whatever, and she voted against it and was the only one to do so. I don't know if it was... we're going to have to ignore this because I haven't got any particular information, so it can't really stand, can it?
Gotcha. Apparently your mayor in London is Muslim and he's doing a good job. I mean,
good job. I wouldn't say so. After every terrorist attack, the guy's taken days to reply, and every reply he gives is, "We must feel sorry for the Muslim community."
Okay, so he should be saying "fuck all Muslims" and we need to go fuck them all up because of a terrorist
No, but it shouldn't be the point. The point of what he should be saying at the time is, sorry that these people have had this happen, and we will work with our agencies not to have it happen again.
Do you think that maybe you have to be like really careful in order to phrase your message so that people don't try to turn it into a holy war, like people seem to be like really keen to do?
I don't think people are keen to turn it into a holy war. I think people are keen to stop Islamic immigration, should I say.
Yeah, so maybe that's why he's trying to be careful with this message, because people seem to want to conflate all of Islam with a handful of terrorists.
Again, I don't. People do, obviously, but I don't think that's the general view. I don't think that generally people think all Muslims are terrorists, or even that the majority
you yourself are saying that if you let Muslims immigrate to your country, they're going to turn it into a radical Islamist area.
I think it's possible, yeah. Absolutely. I think it's more possible than people from other religions. And we do see that with radical imams teaching what they want to teach, which is the radicalized version of Islam.
If somebody was running for office in the United Kingdom and they said that they thought that the Quran was the most important book ever written,
yeah.
Would that worry you?
Yes.
Okay. If somebody was, let's say that you had a political leader and he thought that he wanted to go to war with another country, okay? But he didn't expressly say that it was a holy war, but he said that he prayed to Allah for guidance on whether or not he should do it. Would that worry you?
No.
No?
No. There's a difference between doing something because of a religion and doing something because of a... The thing is, I'm just trying to even saying that you can't make a decision like going to war with another country based on a personal belief.
Okay, so if he said he prayed to Allah before deciding, that wouldn't worry you at all? You'd be like, that's cool or whatever?
Yeah.
Okay.
People believe whatever they believe, don't they? And
I guess that bothers me.
This is why I wish so much that the UK had a constitution like the US, because it's always something we can refer back to, and it's always something that this is the point of law, whereas in our case it isn't. It's what's gone before influences what goes on. So in this country, if you want to declare a holy war, you can do. You can't in America, can you?
Declare a holy war?
Yeah.
Well, Trump is trying to, but... Yeah,
and it's been turned down at every opportunity.
Trump also said that the Bible was the most important book ever written.
Yeah, thank fuck we don't have Trump.
Well, wait. Yeah.
I'm not a Trumper by any measure. I would have voted for either. I think Americans were stuck between a rock and a hard place when it came to that election.
I guess, but why don't you like Trump?
Because he's fucking insane. Have you seen some of the stuff he tweets out? He's not presidential at all. Have you?
I mean, he shares a lot of your huge anti-immigration sentiment, though, no?
Yeah, but I know it's going to sound like a Sargon meme, but I'm, centrally left-leaning. Historically, I've been a paid-up member of the Labour Party, which is, a left-leaning capitalist socialist party, which believes in capitalism first and then social programs. So, in general, that is me 100%. But when it comes to this immigration thing, I think I can tell the difference between not wanting a religion because of bigoted views and not wanting a religion because of the way it may affect your country.
Gotcha.
And it's not that I don't want the religion here. It's that if we were to carry on the amount of numbers we were immigrating, then I think there should be some sort of sit down before, citizenship and workers' rights are given, so that they know these are the laws, this is the cultural expectations, and you need to abide by these.
So do you think that, so in the United States, even though we have 3 million Muslims, you think that they're not radical because there aren't enough of them?
I think they're not radical because the United States does a really good job of stopping radical Muslim imams from teaching at mosques and education centres, whereas we don't.
How do we stop them from teaching?
Because when someone wants to come into your country, you do a very, very good check on their background.
Can't you guys just do a better background check? Why do you have to just ban all Muslims?
Well, I'd love to do a better background check, but that's, according to the EU, that's discriminatory, and we can't limit it by that.
I thought you guys weren't part of the free travel agreement, that Schengen area, or whatever the fuck it's called.
It's not, but when people come from the Schengen area, it's a shared travel area. So although they're not free to come in unchecked, we don't do anywhere near the extensive checks we would do if they were coming from, say, Libya or whatever.
So you think that there are other extremists
without checks by going via Ireland?
So there are other extremist Muslims that are coming from other countries in Europe? Where do all of these do they all come from, Germany, or?
No, they come from outside of Europe.
Wait, but then you said you can do your extensive background checks on them, no?
We can, but if they come from another European country, then we don't.
So you think the radical dudes first immigrate to another European country who has less stringent background checks than you for some reason, and then once they're in another European country, then they immigrate to your country?
Yes. And, there's proof of that.
What is it? I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but what is the proof of that? This really happens? This seems like an incredibly expensive thing to do.
Oh, yeah, but, it's not like ISIS or any extremist groups are not heavily funded, is it?
I guess. I mean, some extremist groups can be funded, but...
What's your contention with what I'm saying, that people aren't entering the EU who are radical Muslims?
that there aren't there's massive number of millions or tens of millions of Muslims that are coming into the EU, sneaking into other countries so that they can.
No, I don't think it's tens of millions at all. No, of course not.
Okay,
that's not what I'm saying, though. What I'm saying is, if a small number come in that are radical imams, and then they teach at the mosques, they radicalize other people.
Okay, so
I know we talked about it before, but Luton's the perfect example of it.
So you think that a group of relatively secular Muslim people or relatively
there's no such thing.
Are there secular Christian people?
Yes.
Then there are secular Muslim people, just like there are probably.
Not.
Why not?
Because one cannot be differentiated from the other.
What do you mean one can't be differentiated from the other?
In Islam, it teaches you how to live your life and how to act to others. And if you don't act in these ways, then you're not a Muslim.
Okay, we do the same thing.
It's about personal beliefs and personal views.
Well, in Christianity, sex before marriage is a sin, like literally a sin. Like there's no way around that. But we still have plenty of people that bang before marriage who consider themselves Christian.
But that doesn't stop them from getting into the kingdom of heaven, does it?
I'm not sure. I don't know. It depends on how liberal your interpretation is or secular your interpretation is. Much the same way I imagine there are probably Muslims that break similar laws in the Hadith or Quran or whatever who probably also still feel like they're going to Allah heaven or whatever. There are secular Muslims. There absolutely are. There are Muslims that don't wear the fucking headpiece all the fucking time, the towel thing or whatever.
Yes, but that's different points of what they do and don't do in Islam. But Islam itself is a religious political identity. It's not just a religion.
Okay, but there are people that can follow it without adhering strictly to every single part of the political ideology.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. But when they're coming from the Middle East and North and Eastern Africa...
Okay, sure. So then returning to my original question, if there are secular Muslims that exist in your country, why would they let a radical person become an imam? Like, you've got all these people that are integrated into your society that are super chill, being British, that consider themselves to be British. They do consider themselves to be your countrymen. Yeah. You think that they would let a radical Muslim come in and just convert all of them? It would just happen. They would just fall over like dominoes. You don't think there would be any pushback whatsoever?
I think there would be pushback from the majority, yeah, but all they have to do is get through to the minority. There's a white guy, he's a white ginger dude, can't remember his name, historically Christian, was sent to prison, came out of prison, a Muslim, went to his local imam, full prayer time, blah, 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 3 times a day, like he should, and he was caught with explosives and guns going to assassinate someone. This is the guy from our country that followed our culture and our beliefs, although it might be, this is what's the word? Just like one story, not a statistically probable amount. But if you can change someone's beliefs and identity that much from, a British-born white Anglo-Christian background to someone who wants to commit Islamic atrocities.
Sure. So I don't deny that this can happen, but when you try to pass judgment on the majority of the people based on a very small minority, couldn't you say the same about literally every single other group of people? Like, doesn't that mean you need to excise every single religious group or every single political movement, or because any group is susceptible to a minority being radicalized and caused to commit crimes?
I understand what you're saying, but when it comes to immigration, no one is entitled to enter your country. You invite them here. And if you see, like, the Muslim rape gangs are at 90, they make up 5% of the country, and they commit 90% of the gang rape in our country, you can see that there is a problem. So I can't see why limiting the numbers of immigrants coming to a country that are from an Islamic background, while you try to sort this problem out internally, I can't see a problem with that. We all discriminate. It depends how much you discriminate. That makes a difference. And I think if you have a reason for it...
I'm not trying to put you on the spot. That's a really extreme claim. Do you have a source for that 5% of Muslims or 90% of rape gangs or whatever?
Yeah, our population, Muslim population, is meant to be about 5%. Vast majority of statistics will show you that. And I'll show you the 90% one. The one that I've just linked to is a study of, or not even a study really, it's a list of rape gangs and people who have been convicted of being part of a rape gang in this country. And
first of all, why are we distinguishing rape gangs from overall rape? Do you have those statistics? Like the part of...
Well, because they're two different crimes. I don't know about rape, but rape gang I do. But I don't understand why that makes a difference, if I'm honest with you.
That just seems like... Imagine you have a country where 10% of religious group A is shooting people to death, 10% of religious group B is exploding themselves to kill other people, and 10% of religious group C is poisoning people, right? And then you go, well, if you look at this, 98% of all people that blow themselves up are from religious group B, so they're the worst. Well, why is that necessarily worse than what A or C does? It just seems
because
weird.
If they were all... In your example, you're right, it wouldn't be. However, when we're talking about immigration, we're talking about people coming from another country into yours. So if 90% of them commit these crimes and we know they're not British-born, British culturally raised, then we know that there's a problem that exists solely within this community.
I just don't understand why you would draw this. It just seems like a weird distinction to draw. It kind of sounds like... it kind of sounds like cherry picking.
Well, no, because when you talk about rape gangs, it's not just, there's so many reasons for rape. Obviously, none of them justifiable. But when you talk about rape gangs, it's groups of men targeting specific races of children and women, and then using them to earn money. So talking about the sex trafficking, things like that. It's an extremely more serious crime even than rape itself. So, it's a major crime, not just...
Real quick, on this thing you linked me, it says that Muslims are approximately 5% of the UK population, but they are 90% of those convicted for these grooming gang crimes. Is there a source for that anywhere, or is it just stated on this .com? I don't actually see them linking to any kind of data or anything. I see them...
It's based on the dude's book, which gathers up, it's called Easy Meat by Peter McLaughlin. It gathers up all of the data of prosecutions that are not hidden. There's a lot of hidden data in our court system when it comes to family court. They don't release the data because it's not allowed to be released for privacy, etc. It's based on the data that the courts release, and so I don't want to say actually what was I saying? I got off onto another track. Yeah, so it's just the data that was released by the British courts, and then it's grouped up into one section, and then seen if it's Islamic, someone from an Islamic country, or someone that has Islamic beliefs versus an indigenous population. And it's found at 90-10 or 9-1.
But only gang rapes. He didn't do all the rapes, I guess.
No, he just obviously he wanted this one particular point. I don't know. I'd imagine that rape is a majoritatively white British crime. That's why it doesn't point it out. Whereas this guy's book is all about Islamic crime in the UK.
I don't know. It sounds like.
I love how your chat's calling me racist. What part of my views are racist?
Don't worry about chat, dude.
Okay.
Fuck. I can't talk about a book I haven't read, I guess. Drawing the distinction at gang rape versus rape seems like classic cherry-picking tactics. I find it strange that I can't find this stat sourced in any other part of the internet. When I search for this 90% rape number, nothing else comes up except for like a site called like Jihad Watch, and then another site that is only sourcing the book. Nobody else seems to have this data except for this one person that wrote it in this one book. And the distinction that you draw between gang rape and normal rape screams of cherry-picked data. Do you understand why that sounds like it's cherry-picked?
I can understand why it sounds that way. Would you agree that child and adult sex trafficking is worse than rape?
Well, what are we talking about now? Are we talking about sex trafficking, or are we talking about gang rape?
Well, that's the grooming gang statistics isn't just about gang rape. It's about grooming gang rape, so it includes things like sex trafficking and stuff. I don't know. We should probably look up the official definition of it.
Well, do you think that sex trafficking is predominantly done then by extremist Muslims in the United Kingdom, or?
I think it's predominantly done by non-British nationals, yes.
Gotcha. But Muslims?
I don't know. The only statistic I've seen is obviously this one on it, so I couldn't say that sex trafficking itself is only done by Muslims. No, I could never come to that conclusion. Okay,
because you try to make it sound like the gang rape thing is like tied to sex trafficking.
Yeah. I see what you're saying, yeah. Then, if it is, I don't know the definition of it, it's probably, that's what I'm saying, we should probably look it up. If the definition of it is tied to sex trafficking as well, then yes. And if not, no.
Okay, so to back up to the central argument, you think that Muslims should be banned from going into your country because...
No.
Oh, wait, no, okay, I'm sorry. What was your initial point?
That we should limit immigration from majoritively Islamic nations.
Okay, from what to what?
Well, immigration, so into our country. So yeah, from majority...
Like, is it like too much now? Do you know how many come in now?
I wouldn't have the statistics offhand, but if they're up to 5% of a population of, 73 million now? There would be numbers over time, I guess.
Wait, there are 73 million Muslims in the United Kingdom?
No, 73 people in the United Kingdom, and they make up 5% of that.
Wait, there are 73 people in the United Kingdom?
73 million people.
Oh, okay.
I believe it is at this point, yeah. I guess the argument comes down to, it's because if the way I say it sounds like a Trump-style ban of just banning Muslims, like a Muslim ban. I wouldn't say a Muslim ban at all, because I would limit the country, not the people of that country itself, because you, like you said, you can have maybe secular but less adherence to the Quran type Muslims who just want to live their life in peace like the majority do. But when you come from extremist countries that believe extremist ideals, that's where I think we should, limit.
Gotcha. So all of this is based on, all of this is based on that 5% of Muslims commit 90% of grooming gang attacks. You don't know any stats for any other.
No, it's not 5% of Muslims. It's 5% of the population are Muslims.
Commit 90% of the grooming gang attacks. Okay, so that one stat, you don't know any other stats on any other violent crime at all, on arsons, on murders, on robberies, on.
Does it matter?
Well, I guess not. I mean, like, what if there are other groups of people that commit these crimes disproportionately? Do you just want to limit immigration from every single other country if anybody in any of these countries has any kind of criminals, or?
If they have a major predisposition to these crimes, yeah. But this is one statistic that I've seen that shows that people committing these crimes are more likely to from certain backgrounds. Okay. Overwhelmingly, not just more likely even, it's just overwhelmingly.
Can you tell me what you mean when you say embracing terrorism as a daily part of life?
Yeah, it's what Sadiq Khan said, the mayor of London. He didn't say those exact words. It was around that. It was terrorism's now a thing that we have to experience on a daily life, and we should accept that.
Can you give me a link to this statement?
Yeah, 2 secs.
Let me see if I can find it.
Probably you're a lot faster than me. Independent.
Are you talking about the French dude?
No, Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London. Yeah,
London mayor.
Skype.
Okay.
And if what he's saying is correct, then why doesn't the capital city of Poland experience terrorist attacks?
Hold on, let me listen to this.
Yeah, no.
It's not for me to get involved in a presidential election in another country. As much as I love the USA, it's up to Americans to decide who runs your country. But I will say this.
Oh, according to a chat, both of them said the same thing, the French guy in Mayor London.
We play straight into the hands of those who seek to divide us, of extremists and terrorists around the world, when we imply that it's not possible to hold Western values dear and to be a Muslim. It only makes it harder to build integrated and cohesive communities, and it makes it easier for terrorists to radicalize our young people, making us less safe, whether in the USA, France, or Britain, because it's dividing rather than uniting, and because it builds walls to keep us apart rather than bridges to bring us together.
I don't think this is, Fuck, this video didn't have the quote.
No, I think
Sadiq Khan has said that he believes that the threat of terror attacks are part and parcel of living in a big city and encouraged Londoners to be vigilant to combat dangers.
Do you think that's acceptable enough position to be as a mayor of London?
I don't know. I guess it sounds kind of like a dumb statement, but I mean, I guess there's always the threat of terror attacks. I don't know, no?
Is there?
I mean, yeah, if you live in a free society, sure.
See, I don't know if that's true. And the percentage...
How do you think you can stop all terror attacks?
Well, how many terror attacks France had last year?
I don't know. Was it like 2 or 3? How many?
It was including foiled and arrested. There were 120 incidents of separate, planned or carried out Islamic terrorist attacks in France last year. How many were in Poland?
I don't know. Who the fuck why would you attack Poland? There's nothing in Poland.
Well, because it's a European nation.
Yeah, but nobody gives a fuck about Poland. If you're trying to send a message to the world, why the fuck would you do a terror attack in Poland?
Well, why'd you do a terror attack in half the places?
Well, because France is one of the largest countries in the world in terms of economy and position on the global scale. Like,
yeah, I see what you're saying.
Do you really think that terror attacks in Poland or Romania or Ukraine or Lithuania, do you think that like terror attacks would be as reported in these areas as they would be in like France or Germany or the United Kingdom?
Locally, yeah, obviously not worldwide, no.
Yeah.
My reason for that isn't, I don't think it has anything to do with that fact, though. I think it's because Poland's immigration routine is vastly different.
Sure, but back to what we were talking about, it's not really possible to stop all terror attacks. I mean... No,
but expecting them to be a part of daily life...
I don't think it's expecting them to be a part of daily life, more as like the threat of terror attacks right now around the world just seems to be... It seemed like he was advocating... I don't know, like I feel like you could read this either way depending on what narrative you wanted to take. He says that Sadiq Khan has said that he believes the threat of terror attacks are part and parcel of living in a big city and encouraged Londoners to be vigilant of combat dangers. I feel like if he said the opposite, that, oh, there is no threat of terror attacks in large cities, don't worry about it, you'd be like, well, why isn't he telling people to be vigilant? Why isn't he telling people to worry about it? I'm like, I don't know, it seems like a really harmless statement. Sadiq Khan
seems like a statement that's preparing people to accept that this is normal and it will carry on.
Or maybe it's just telling people to, like, hey, like, be vigilant, like, be looking out for shit, because people are fucking crazy right now. I don't think that's necessarily...
If that was the point, you wouldn't need the first part, would you?
What?
That to expect it. Be vigilant is different to expecting it.
So hey guys, there's probably like no chance of a terror attack, but just keep your eyes open just in case.
No,
I don't
why
know.
would
That
you
message
make
doesn't
that
ring as
statement
well.
itself? Not the opposite. Why would you make that statement itself? I don't understand. As, like you say, a political leader. The reason we don't like Trump is because he's not presidential and he makes ridiculous remarks that make people think he's retarded at a presidential level. Yet it's okay for the mayor of London, who happens to be a Muslim, and we're facing, Muslim extremism at the moment. It's okay for him to make that remark. I don't understand how that's acceptable.
Hold on one second. Let me find this exact. I want to hear him say it. 1 second.
The advice we've received from the police service here and from the mayor's office is to carry on business as usual. I'm not going to speculate as to who was responsible. I'm not going to speculate as to how the police in New York should react. What I do know is part and parcel of living in a great global city is you've got to be prepared for these things. You've got to be vigilant. You've got to support the police doing an incredibly hard job. You've got to support the security services. And I think speculating when you don't know the facts is unwise.
This sounds like the least harmless or the least harmful statement I've ever heard in my life. I don't know, dude. He's literally just saying like, yo, like be aware. Like if you live in a big city, like keep your eyes open. I don't know. This doesn't seem like a horrible statement. I'm trying really hard to find the outrage.
No, it's fine. We obviously see it from two different points of views, and that's okay.
Well, here, can you listen to this? I'm just curious. Can you just play this and listen to this 30-second clip? Let me know when you start. I'll start at the same time. We can listen together, okay?
Okay, let's do it in 3, 2, 1.
The advice we've received from the police service here and from the mayor's office is to carry on business as usual. I'm not going to speculate as to who was responsible. I'm not going to speculate.
Can we just pause now? About 18 seconds.
New York should react.
Before he's even made that statement, I'm not going to speculate who it is. Why not?
Because it's probably not good to speculate on who it is until the investigation has come through. Why would you speculate?
Because we all know who it is. That's why.
How do you know before the investigation has even happened?
Because the vast majority of them have been the same attackers, and he knows that the motive for the attacks being in London.
You realize that what you're saying right now is I'm not trying to use this slightly, but it's actual bigotry. Like what you're saying right now, right? Like, well, if bigotry? Because you're making an assumption about the identity of an attacker based solely on the fact that other attackers have been that religion. Like you're literally like that. That would be like saying. So
you think some dude shouting Allah Akbar and running into a building blowing himself up doesn't show that he's probably Muslim?
I don't know. There's probably a ton of reports about what are shouted, but like if that's true, then the police will make their decision and announce.
No, you're right. When you follow it logically, you do what you said. You're right. You are right. When you follow it logically, you investigate and you find out afterwards.
Sure. I mean, like, if he said Allah Akbar running into a building, he's probably fucking Muslim, but it doesn't do any good to dwell on speculation. Just wait. I mean, if that's what he said, then it's probably going to be announced that there was some Muslim shit going on. You just wait for the announcement and then you move on. I
doubt that, but yeah. Look at how much it was denied that the recent London terror attack was a Muslim until it got down to the fact that he was converted in prison and blah, blah, blah. It might be trying to hide so much.
Is it trying to hide it, or is it just trying to be thorough with the investigation and not literally jump down somebody's throat like the second something, like you realize that people that are kind of on your side of the political aisle right now, like as soon as anything happened, like, oh, let me guess, that's a Muslim, right? When these
how many
people
times
are
are they
screaming,
right? God, my voice just broke then. I'm 29. What the fuck? How many times are they right when they say, I bet it's a Muslim, and it turns out it is?
Yeah, and I mean, when they are right, they scream it from the rooftops, but when they're wrong, that shit goes quiet real fucking fast. Remember when Trump and everybody around the world was making fun of the Muslims that shot up that fucking church or whatever, or stabbed people in Canada and some shit, and then when you found out that it was actually like somebody from the opposite side of the political aisle, people dropped that shit and left it immediately, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're looking for...
You're telling me yourself you don't think if there's a terrorist attack that you're Muslim?
I mean, it's possible it will be. At this point in the world climate, it's more than probable. I mean, depending on where it's from, sure. But, like, you understand that, like, you still wait for the process to go through.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You are right.
Yeah, but philosophically, you're doing yourself a massive disservice by jumping on this, like, Muslim thing immediately. Like, all you do is you kind of alienate all the other Muslims, and you kind of make everybody else kind of feel like shit. Like, when you're so... like the attitude of being, like, so excited. Be like, I knew it was a fucking Muslim. I knew it. I fucking knew it was a Muslim. Like, all you do there is you, like, serve to divide your own people more and more. Not immigrants, but, like, actual British citizens, right, that are Muslim. You just make them feel shittier and shittier every time you like jump from joys from the rooftop when you happen to be right about the identity of a terror attacker. Like this
I think in general that might do, but I make sure to make this separation between an immigrant Muslim and British Muslim. I think they're two completely different people.
Okay, well, when you cited that 90% or 5% of Muslims rape 90% of the gang rapes or whatever, that wasn't separating immigrants from national Muslims, from natives. And that's what you're basing all of your belief on whether you should...
It's not on this one statistic, but it is based on, an accumulation.
Well, it seemed like that one statistic because you said you didn't have any other statistics for any other type of crime. What other reasons are there that you want to keep Muslims out of the country?
Not to hand or whatever. Well, I said about the political change.
This theory that minorities will come in and somehow hijack your majority thought that doesn't seem to happen anywhere else, or I've never heard of this happening.
That has happened, time and time again.
Where one minority radical comes in and then radicalizes a whole bunch of secular or moderates. This happens a lot in first world countries.
Yeah, Germany in 1936. Just off the top of my head, did that not happen?
Do you think that the conditions that existed in Germany right now exist for the Muslim community in the United Kingdom or the United States?
They're obviously very, very different conditions, but I think the conditions are there that Muslims may find it easier to believe that a fellow Muslim over a country that they've emigrated to. Yeah.
Don't you think it might be important then, as a country that they're immigrating to make them feel like they're part of that country and welcome in that country and a cohesive member of that country, rather than continuing to try to alienate them and draw them as others to make them more easily radicalized?
But what I said was about integrating them, about understanding the cultural norms and legal norms of a country that you emigrate to. We don't do that. So not immigrate to. No, you emigrate. Yeah, you leave. Sorry. We don't do that in this country. We expect them to know the laws and cultural norms.
Why not start doing it then?
Oh, I'd love to. But if you say that, you're a bigot and...
Wait, you're a bigot for trying to integrate people into your...
Yes. Go on any type of social media and say you don't want people to immigrate without integration, and see what the public backlash is. Usually, from the crazy left. Not saying that all left is crazy.
Actually, I can
from the left.
I can kind of buy that. I can imagine that coming across from crazy lefty fucks on Twitter. So I mean, I can imagine that. But wouldn't it be better to try to combat that rather than to demonize an entire group of people and just become a reactionary?
Yeah, I think it would.
So let me give you an example, and I'll agree with you on this because this is probably stuff that I've seen before. So you tell Muslims coming in hey, you got to moderate the fuck out of that Sharia law shit. You need to let your women drive, and you need to kind of chill out on some of your more conservative religious values, right? I think that I can see some lefties saying some shit don't be mean to, they can do what they want or whatever. I guess I can see that happening, but don't you think then that you should be okay, well, hey, listen up, dude. I think integration into the country is important. They can still be Muslim. Everybody can be religious. That's chill as fuck. But I just don't want these crazy things. Don't you think that's a better response than well, if you guys are going to be fucking crazy, well, fuck, I don't want any of these fucking Muslims here. Then fuck that shit. Don't you think that the former is a more reasonable response than the latter?
Yeah. The way you put it, yeah, absolutely. Obviously, moving in different circles that you believe in, it comes a bit of an echo chamber and it gets more and more extreme, I guess. But I do think that's right. But that's not what our government does. So if I had a choice of stopping all or stopping none, my choice would be stopping all. I guess, if that's a racist, bigoted view, then I guess that what it makes me. But that seems to be what it is. Why do we allow Sharia law courts in this country?
Well, isn't that a local thing where they only talk about marriage and shit? You don't have criminal. If you're committing do you call them federal crimes there? If you're committing crimes that
capital,
are
capital crimes.
Yeah, capital crimes. If you murder somebody, you're not going to Sharia court, right? Isn't
no.
Marriage shit
right.
and little
but
local
why
shit?
Does it matter? There's one law of the land, and that's British law.
Yeah, but do you do this? Don't you do this shit? Fuck, I know Catholics do this, where you go you pray penance and you have confession and shit. Isn't it kind of a similar thing? You go to
it's where an imam decides what you should do from that point, and if you don't, you're shunned by the Muslim community. And we know how much social pressure can be a bitch.
Yeah, but that's kind of what Catholics do, right? If you commit a crime or if you commit a sin or whatever, you're supposed to go to church. You pray, and then you say you go to confession, right? With the priest. The priest will tell you what you need to do for penance. If you don't do that, I mean, I guess for Catholics, they'll say it's between you and God, but I mean, you'll be shunned or whatever if you don't go to confession and whatnot. I mean, in more extremist religious communities, like, I feel like this is kind of similar. Like when people, because initially you say Sharia courts, and it's like, oh shit, like criminal law and everything is like, oh wow, that's really bad. But then you kind of dial that back.
Sharia just means religious, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
but then it's like when you say Sharia courts, what you're really saying is like if somebody like cheats on their wife, they go to like a religious court where the guy's like, you shouldn't cheat on your wife, you fucking idiot. Like you need to have 10 lashes or whatever dumb religious bullshit they do, and they kind of go on. It's not like somebody like literally murders somebody, and then you go to like Sharia court, and then like Judge Judy, like Muhammad comes out and says, oh, like you need to ask Muhammad for forgiveness and now you're good to go. Like it's not right.
I understand that, but why is there then two different acceptances of what you do, whether it's a civil...
Well, because there's always going to be different. That's part of living in a society with different people. There's always going to be people with varying degree. I'm sure I could go to the United Kingdom
people, but not authorities.
Well, yeah, religious authorities. I'm sure there are plenty of people with different religious thought in the United Kingdom in terms of like what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. I'm sure you're probably religious authorities in the United Kingdom that think that homosexuality is disgusting and wrong, and you'll be shunned from the entire community if you're outed as a homosexual.
But then they would still face the law courts for doing that, wouldn't they?
Wait, what do you mean face the law courts?
Well, if you discriminate against homosexuals, even in the religious concept in this country...
Oh, well, no, I'm not talking about, like, discrimination, like, in the workplace, but I'm saying, like, shunned from a community or from a religious institution or whatever, right?
Must not got that, sorry. Do you think it's acceptable to have that in the US, then? Just as a side point.
What, acceptable to have what in the US?
Sharia... Oh, sorry. Religious...
I mean,
cool. I don't even know what.
I mean, I think it's dumb as fuck because I'm an atheist. But I mean, yeah, if religious people want to exercise the right, the Catholic Church does it with marriage, like hardcore. I think you even get married by fucking priests and shit, which I think is fucking ridiculous. But yeah, there's a lot of intertwined shit with marriage and religion in the United States. And I mean, it's in the United States, like religion is like
I think the difference is that the social pressures force them to agree with the outcomes.
Well, I mean that happens in the United States too. That's why we had gay people getting electroshock therapy to be not gay. That wasn't legally mandated. That was pressure from religious communities.
But those men never agreed to that, did they? I thought that was a forced parent.
No, some of them agreed to it because they're ashamed as fuck because they like other men and it's disgusting to them because they've been raised to believe it's disgusting. Or like how many women that believe that even fucking sex is disgusting, that women don't want to fuck anybody before they get married because their husbands will view them as used up trash, or you're getting the milk without the cow. Like these are all religious thoughts, religious ideas that come from religious people, and it definitely impacts people's lives, and they willingly embrace it and accept it because they've been raised to, from birth to willingly accept it. Like I don't know. I think there's a lot of similarity there. This is kind of like my going back to thing. And I know people get angry when I do it, but I think there's a lot of similarity between conservative Christian religious people and conservative Muslim religious people. I personally hate them all, but it bothers me when some people defend one group and then don't and then like be so harsh on the other. Like in some of your tweets, I remember you tweeted things saying that like any death is too many. Like, that's an unrealistic burden to place on any group of immigrants. You are never going to find a perfectly crimeless group of immigrants entering a country that will never murder, never rape, never thieve from anybody. Like, that's never. I don't
think that's come across right. Probably because it was in text. That's not what I was saying. I was saying any deaths is too many. When it comes to the fact that there are steps you take. If there is a death because of a reason, you investigate, you take steps to prevent it in the next time. Whereas with terrorism, we're not doing that apart from in the like police side of things. Whereas there's a whole immigration side of things that we're not looking at. Like education, like you were saying about integration with education and stuff. Well,
but I mean, like, you can still investigate that. I'd be like, well, this one immigrant committed, a crime, or a couple immigrants are committing crimes. We need to stop or seriously curb the flow of all of them coming in. I don't know. I just feel it's a little extreme. And I mean, I took that away from your tweet where you said, like, I do believe any deaths is too many. If something causes a death, then we investigate why and we try to solve the problem in this case. Like, you're never going to be able to stop all deaths in a society. Like, I think that's an unrealistic burden to place.
That is unrealistic. But stopping all deaths without the after process happening.
Yeah, but I mean, isn't that part of the goal then? And like, so like, for instance,
I don't think it is. No, not from the government's point of view. No.
Okay, And I think
it doesn't give a shit.
So let me give an example, okay? A lot of people want to talk about statistics in Germany and rape statistics and whatnot, right? So there's a couple problems. One, people don't draw distinctions between groups. They don't draw distinctions between certain refugees from Syria versus refugees from Northern Africa. They don't draw distinctions between immigrants and refugees. They don't draw distinctions between illegal immigrants and immigrants. They don't draw distinctions between immigrants and natives, right? These are a lot of these people all just get lumped in as, I'll call them brown people, although they would probably use a different word for it, right?
Yeah.
So when I look at German,
I hate that, may I add.
When I look at German crime and rape statistics, right, for the most part, immigrants are underrepresented in every category. This seems to be fact to me when I look it up. However, there are groups of immigrants that are dramatically overrepresented. For instance, Muslims that come from Northern Africa in Germany seem to commit a fuck ton more crimes than any other
Somalia?
type. I don't know if it's Somalia exactly, but all the groups, it always says Northern Africa. Northern African Muslims seem to commit a fuck ton more crime than any other group of people in terms of refugees or immigrants to Germany. That's from the stats that I've seen. That seems to be true.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen similar stuff.
So instead of saying like all Muslim immigration needs to stop, or even all Muslim immigration from this place needs to stop, a policy that I would advocate for is, hey, look at these numbers. These people are grossly overrepresented in these statistics. We need to have a targeted policy, right, that encourages education or integration with this group of people so that we see a dramatic fall in these numbers. If we don't, then we need to move to stopping the immigration from this place or screening the people coming much harder, right? I think that is a reasonable policy that I think most people would agree with. Do you think that would be like an okay policy? So let's say that Northern Africa...
100%, but I don't think that's how policies are applied.
Sure. So I don't necessarily disagree with you. Okay, you know what, dude? I think that we actually agree on more things than not, okay? So I understand where you're coming from with most of your things, right? So your problem... I understand. Listen, I understand everything now, okay? So your problem is you have some Muslims that come to your country and do some fucked up things, right? So there's two alternatives. Either one, you can say, I think that we need to look at these problems and try to fix them because they're overrepresented in these stats. Or two, we can stop all immigration. I'm thinking from the sounds of it, you probably want to do the former, but anytime you suggest the former, you get a bunch of lefty cucks that jump down your throat telling you to stop being racist. So instead, you're just like, well, fuck this. Just fuck the immigration completely. Do you think that's like a fair assessment?
Probably. Yeah.
Okay. I don't disagree with you. I think that, so this is kind of like the line that I try to straddle. My encouragement, because I don't disagree with that sentiment, and I understand where you're coming from. I feel like it would be better to try to advocate for a reasonable policy and then to call out idiocy on both sides when you see it, when leftists are being massive fucking dipshits and saying that every time you point out a problem in a certain community, it's racist. Call them stupid on that, but maintain your reasonable position and try not to become an insane reactionary, because that's kind of how we wound up with Trump, right? That would be like the only thing that I would advocate for, right? Because like I would want, because I think that the conversation about like maybe some groups of people need to be targeted harder. I think that some groups of people need to be targeted with either maybe more screening or more types of policy that can somehow curb an overrepresentation in a crime stat. I think that that's a reasonable position that improves three different groups of people. It improves the lives of natives. It improves the lives of the native immigrant population. Or I guess they would just be natives, people that have already immigrated, and then it improves the lives of people coming to the country, right? All groups can win with these types of policies, right? Whereas I think that the policy that you advocate for as a reactionary tends to alienate as a side effect the people that already exist in your country, right? If somebody gets around, and you can find examples of leftists doing this to white people, right? Sometimes leftists, when they talk about white people negatively, they don't necessarily mean you, but it comes off as feeling that way, right? And I always find this ironic that there are people on, I'm going to say the right, that will get very upset when lefties talk about like, oh, well, white people did slavery, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, well, wait, hold on. It wasn't me. It's not all white people. But then they turn around and they do the same to Muslims. And it's like, well, come on, that's not really fair, right?
Fuck. Am I actually being convinced by someone with rational arguments? Christ.
No, I'm not trying to. All I'm trying
what you're
to
saying makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And it makes perfect sense from everyone's point of view that it improves the lives of everyone.
Sure. So I'm not trying to say that I'm more advanced than you or better than you or I'm a grown-up version of you.
No, I think you think of things logically, more logically than I do.
Sure. Well, I'm just saying that emotional. Like 4 or 5 years ago, I was in your exact position, right, where I sat at a pretty extremist right-leaning aisle because anytime you talked about anything, people on the left go fucking crazy about it. And you can actually go and stalk my fucking Reddit account, and even 2 days ago in the neoliberal subreddit, I have a guy jumping down my throat calling me a racist, calling me a bigot because of things that I said like 4 years ago that weren't even really racist or bigoted, right? Like, or no, I'm sorry, not even. The Ben Shapiro video where I made an example of Ben Shapiro saying something, and I used the N-word, you know, to get a point across or whatever, as like part of an example. It's like, well, you said this, so you're racist. Like, dude, you're fucking crazy,
Jesus.
right? Yeah, so like, I can understand when you run into people like that, why it wants to push you to the other side. But I think that becoming a reactionary, it feels really dangerous, and it feels like you end up doing more harm than good. And then you get people like Le Pen or Trump or Brexit. Although I know apparently you're a supporter of that, but
no, if you look at my Twitter, I'm a big proponent of democracy. I voted to Remain, and I think economically it would have been so much more. But then it comes down to this immigration issue. I think that's predominantly why most people voted.
Yeah, I agree. Wow. Hey, I agree with you. Hey, there's a British guy that agrees with me that it mainly came down to immigration. I don't think that that's necessarily a wrong thing. Or let me rephrase. I do think it's a wrong thing, but I understand the reactionary position. I just think that you have to be really careful to make sure that so like if there is a bad idea, right? Doing the opposite of a bad idea isn't necessarily a good idea. So you have to be careful not to become a reactionary, because then because what you really do is you let the opposite side define your political belief just in like in a negative way, right? And you don't ever want to be that person, because that's where like the most insane fucking people come from, I think, you know?
No, I do agree. It's like people pushing back against like the left so much that they started to identify as that Richard Spencer as their like leader of the cause.
Yeah, sure.
Which is insane.
Yeah, or find any pictures of you like in your late teens and see the crazy fucking shit you do trying to rebel against your parents, and it's like,
yeah.
Or look at that. What's the fucking name of that Makuni? What's the name of that gymnast chick? Have you seen any of the shit that she's been doing?
Well, is that the girl that was? Oh, Michaela Maroney.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where now that she's out of her strict regimen and she has like free reign to do whatever, now she's going fucking crazy. Or like the Miley Cyrus chick, right? Who's going fucking crazy because she's got all the freedom and shit. Like, yeah.
And now she started to pull back, isn't she? The latest interview, I saw that on Reddit. She started to pull back into a more conservative position.
The Miley Cyrus chick is?
Yeah.
Oh, that's probably a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, she's probably grown up a bit, I guess.
Sure.
Well, okay. You've given me a lot to consider, and I thank you for giving me the position to do it.
Yeah, sure, no problem. I'd like to come away like none of your concerns are bad, right? Just be careful not to demonize an entire group of people. Like if the 90% gang rape thing or whatever is true, like that's something that has to be addressed. Like I don't think that Muslims should be given a free pass on any shit that they do. Just make sure not to like demonize a whole group of people while you do it, you know? Yeah, that does make sense. It really does. I think the biggest convincing of what you said was that 3-part point. You know, it's something that I did used to believe in, but I guess where it gets so much reactionary from all sides, it's hard to maintain that line, that centrist line of, you know, what's best for everyone, I guess. No, yeah, it is, sure. It's like when I tweet things like I think that when I tweet things like I think that we probably shouldn't be punching people for their political beliefs in the street, and I get a fuck ton of lefties getting salty as fucking screaming on Twitter. It's really hard sometimes to be like, well, you know what, dude, this is why Trump won, get fuck shitters. Like, it's hard not to do that sometimes. Like, I totally empathize with that, so. Yeah. All right, okay, well, hey, cool. Buddy, I love you. I love you too. We've ended perfectly on time as well. I've got to get the kids, so nicely done. Well, good luck, buddy. Be careful. Oh, thank you very much, and I look forward to more of your streams. Yeah, have fun. See you later, buddy. See you later, buddy. Bye.